Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know you guys are like, girl, where in the world have you been? I've just been taking this time to focus on therapy. I've been going to therapy for a while now, but you know, with everything that happened last year and then just things that have happened personally for me in the past couple months, I just wanted to prioritize my mental health before I came back to this channel. I want to make sure I'm giving you guys good content and something that I can keep up with weekly, right? And so that means that I need to make sure that I'm in the right headspace. And after the first 3 videos, I was depressed and upset and anxious and all that stuff. And so I needed to get my mental health right. I also have another platform on TikTok. You guys should follow me there. And that was something that I prioritized over YouTube, and I'm trying to do better at equally balancing both of them instead of putting one over the other. So yeah, that's where I've been. From the title, I guess you guys can understand what we're talking about. So let's get into it. We're talking about pretty privilege. Pretty privilege basically encapsulates a bias that everybody has when it comes to pretty people. It is when people get more opportunities in life and are more likely to be successful because of the fact that they are beautiful. And it's something that is really horrible, and it sucks because beauty standards define what we think is pretty. And a lot of times that standard is white, cis-het, skinny, able-bodied people, you know, and if you don't look like that, then you're SOL because you can't benefit from this privilege that lets you get farther in life than other people. And the term itself is pretty problematic, as shown in this next video.
Talk about the term pretty privilege and how the phrase in and of itself does so much more harm than it ever will do good. The term pretty privilege is harmful to us all, is not even because I think that it isolates and creates mentalities of exclusion in us all. The reason why I think the phrase is harmful is because it evades language specificity in order to not name the harm that it is actually inflicting. So when we say pretty privilege, we aren't talking about something inherent to that human being, but rather we are commenting on the way that human being upholds isms and phobias like classism, featureism, colorism, racism, fat phobia, and ableism. That is what pretty privilege is.
Because pretty privilege operates on exclusion and upholds a lot of isms and phobias, as said in that video, it's pretty easy to see how damaging it can be to those who do not fit the standard of beauty that allows pretty privilege to exist. And it's very unfortunate because your beauty should not define whether or not you get a job or whether or not, you get followers and stuff. But unfortunately it does. And it creates such a damaging consequence for those who do not fit into that standard. So important things to talk about is pretty privilege in everyday life. So what does that look like? It's something as simple as someone giving you a free coffee because they like the way that you look. Or someone treating you differently because of the fact that you're pretty, and maybe you have a friend who may not fit the ideal and they're treated completely differently. I am definitely another person who's been on the other side of pretty privilege and been excluded. And when I tell you, it is not fun. It is horrible. And it makes you feel inferior, and it's so damaging to your mental health. I remember in college, Halloween time when everybody's supposed to dress sexy and all that stuff. I didn't do that, and my friends did, and they're already pretty beautiful women. And they were just getting all the attention, and I just felt like chopped liver. I was just like, girl, first of all, I know I'm pretty. I know I'm beautiful. I don't need someone else to tell me that. I know. Girl, look at this face. Look at the material.
See me!
Look at the material. I'm pretty, okay? But the people that I was with, they were you would consider them to be white, passing individuals. Both of my friends are of Hispanic descent, so but at the end of the day, still white Latinas. So they're able to get by because of the way they look in some ways. And this is not me saying I hate them or that I'm jealous. That was something I dealt with my sophomore year, and it was really hard for me because I let this beauty standard get the best of me, and it happens to all of us. And I don't think I've ever told them stories, so if you guys are watching this, just know that I'm good, like I'm fine. It's completely on me, and the beauty standard that has put this pressure on women. But yeah, I'm good. Please don't think that like I'm upset, because I'm not. I use that story because it's important to understand that like even when we are confident in who we are, there are times where things will just get the best of you. It is impossible to say that, right? And this is just an everyday life thing. But let's talk about studies that show what attractiveness does for people. Like if you are attractive, what does that mean for you as you go through life? So attractive people are perceived to be smarter. They are considered more trustworthy. They are rated higher for social skills, warmth, and dominance. They are paid more attention to than others. They are paid better, given better jobs, and better spouses. They are less likely to be sentenced, and to be sentenced less harshly. They are perceived as healthy and more competent. They enjoy better life outcomes. And as a result, they have a higher psychological well-being and lower levels of depression. Basically, people are nice to pretty people. Point blank, period. However, if we're being honest, this is not applied to everyone equally. Like I said earlier, pretty privilege is based off beauty standards. The beauty standards, which have been defined since slavery, is able-bodied, cis-het, skinny people. That's how it's always been. And anyone who does not fit that standard is excluded. So if you are trans, if you are fat, if you are disabled, if you are gender non-conforming, you are not part of that beauty standard. It doesn't mean that you aren't considered pretty and you won't have a privilege, but that privilege may be harder to weaponize or maybe harder to use than someone who is white, cis-het, able-bodied, and skinny. And that's just something that has been proven time and time again. There are multiple studies out there that talk about beauty standards and talk about white people and white skinny, cis-het, able-bodied people, and how this privilege allows them to get farther in life, you know? And unfortunately, that's just how the cookie is crumbled in terms of the way our society has formed itself. And Janet Mock, if you don't know, she is a trans woman who is a writer, activist, producer, etc. Just amazing. And she has this beautiful, beautiful article in a series that she has in Allure magazine called Beauty Beyond Binaries. And she talks about this, and it's where I got a lot of my information from. And even she admits that she has pretty privilege because she is a trans woman who has cis-het bending abilities. And I love the way that she talks about it in this article, the way that she defines pretty privilege, the way that she talks about her experiences. And it's important for you as a person who may have pretty privilege. I think you should read this article and then ask yourself, how have I benefited from this privilege? And in other ways, how can I use it to help other people who may not have the same privilege as I? And one of the big things that I've been talking about is how pretty privilege is not equally distributed. It's something that, you know, is on a spectrum. If you are white, able-bodied, cis-het, and skinny, you are the standard, right? And then it kind of, you know, varies after that. And I'm talking about women because that is my experience, but pretty privilege can also be applied to men, right? But oftentimes, pretty privilege excludes black and brown, trans, fat, disabled, gender non-conforming people. Like, these people are excluded from this. So let's talk about an example, TikTok. TikTok is a very big example where people can utilize their pretty privilege to gain followers. Multiple people have done it, and multiple people have had a problem with it because they have no other talent than being pretty, right? But that does not apply to everybody. There are, especially when we talk about dark-skinned black women, that privilege sometimes is not extended the same way that is extended to a white woman. And it makes it unfair because with TikTok, you can get a lot of opportunities Like, look at Addison Rae. The girl's in a movie. She's starting a music career, you know, like all these things. And like, this is all because, you know, she's white, she's pretty, she's able-bodied, right? Like, she's getting opportunities that she can get because of the fact that she has this privilege. I'm not saying that she's not talented, but her looks definitely play into the part of why she's so successful. And if you look at other people, like contrast it to other people who have not been able to blow up on the app in the same way, we're talking about usually black and brown people who are not given these same opportunities. And pretty privilege, even on TikTok, allows you to escape criticism for bad things. Addison Rae is a big example of this. She had a huge scandal where she was found out to have said the N-word, and people just brushed over it like it was nothing to like talk about. And it's because of the fact that she's pretty and like, you know, she's white. Like, people are more likely to excuse her behavior because of this, and that's a whole situation we're talking about, infantilizing white women, that we can get into in another video. But it plays into all of this. So when two of my favorite creators blew up, Gigi the Black Barbie and DaSilva the Kid, it was really cool because these are two dark-skinned women who are blowing up just because they're pretty and because they are just flawless. Like, everything, like, I'm talking about just beautiful. But even then, like, it felt like they had to be perfect to have that platform. They had to have their wig laid, you know, eyebrows done, makeup done, skinny, like all these things. It puts pressure on creators to not only keep up with these appearances, but also on the watcher, because you're watching these people, especially if you're a dark-skinned black woman, you're watching this and you're just like, and the message you're getting is, okay, I have to have all this stuff done to be considered pretty. It's unfair, not only to the watcher, but also to the creator. Like, it's just, it's equally a lot of pressure. And I'm not gonna blame, you know, these two creators for doing what they gotta do. You know, get that money, sis. Like, chase a bag and get that coin. But the reasons why, like, women feel like this, specifically black women feel like they have to do X, Y, and Z to be considered pretty is because black women in society are hyper masculinized. And that is something that has been happening since slavery. So we feel like we have to have our hair done, our wigs done, our hair laid, eyebrows done, all that stuff, to be considered pretty. Like, even me, like, I am sitting up here with a wig, bandana, because it's not, you know, glued down, my eyebrows done, and like even have a little bit of makeup done, because I want you guys to like perceive me as pretty. And I know that pretty means clicks, and clicks means views, and views means money. Like, at the end of the day, like, we know what pretty means in society and how we can use it to our advantage. And for all of us, we aspire to do that because we see how pretty pays. And pretty pays a pretty penny. What is that alliteration? Automatopoeia? Look at me, grammar. Look at me, language arts. But pretty pays. Simple as that. And I would be dumb not to use it, but it's also the question of how do we stop this bias from continuing? Where do we go from here? And one of the things that we have to do is unlearn the biases we have towards pretty people. And I know that may seem like, what? No, like, we shouldn't do that, but we have to, because when we have biases towards pretty people and that leads to them having more opportunities than others, then we are leaving out other people who may be qualified for these jobs who are not getting the same opportunities. We're leaving out people who may be getting harsher prison sentences because they are not perceived as pretty to other people. Like, let's be honest. Because of the beauty standard, there are going to be people who get away with things that others can't. And that is not fair. There are going to be people who get paid more because of the way that they look. And that's not fair, especially if they're getting paid more and they're not qualified for the job. Like, we have to start talking about these things, because while pretty pays, it definitely hurts those who are not perceived as pretty. And so unlearning your biases towards pretty people and why you perceive them to be these things is very important. That comes with bias training. It comes with talking to people about it. It comes from, you know, maybe talking to a therapist or just talking to somebody where you can start like unwinding these thoughts of, you know, why you think of pretty people in a certain way in comparison to other people. And another thing is the body positivity movement. That's another way where we can actually move forward from this, you know, pretty privilege thing, because body positivity gives those who do not fit the standard the opportunity to shine. Body positivity was created by Black, queer, fat women to uplift and to celebrate fat, disabled, and gender non-conforming bodies. And it's important to celebrate those bodies. It's important to celebrate those people because they don't fit the standard and have systemically been oppressed because of that. Like, we can't sit here and lie and say that fat people are not oppressed, that they are not systemically oppressed, because that is a lie. It's the way that they're treated in health. It's the way that they're treated in medicine. It's the way that they're treated when they're walking down the street. The thoughts that come through your mind when you see a bigger person. Like, that is something that has been taught systemically. Our society is inherently fat phobic. And when we start normalizing and start celebrating the bodies that have been marginalized and been othered, then we can get to a point where these biases no longer inform other decisions like prison sentences and money and pay. Like, doing these things and unlearning these things and starting celebrating those who've been othered by society leads to a society where everyone is equal and where everyone feels that their voices are heard and are important. So in conclusion, pretty privilege is something that people do benefit from, but I don't think it's something that will stay this way. I think as people start moving towards understanding and loving who they are and celebrating other people and what they look like and who they are, we may not have to deal with the fact that some people are celebrated only because of the way that they look. We will be able to go farther than just the surface of the skin. We'll start looking deeper. Who is that person as a human being? What are they doing? Like, what do they like? Who do they love? Like, all of those things will be more important than what we just see face value. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think, your thoughts on pretty privilege, and let me know what other things you want me to talk about. I love to do research about things. I love to talk about them, as you can see. So I would love to hear what other ideas you may have and what other topics, interest you that you would like me to talk about. So yeah, it's been fun, guys. Love you guys, and I will see you next week.